holy being united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the spirit of guidance. Okay. I'm very happy to offer this teaching. I've been studying these teachings for many decades, but this particular body of teachings have been focused on maybe for the last year, and it relates to, again, the greater theme of the deeper side of life, or the inner life, we could say. So this is on the art of personality. And listen to these words of Murshid's, because at some point they almost appear as koans to us. There is a difference between individuality and personality. Just those two words, individuality and personality. Just as there's a difference between nature and art. No matter how much nature is near to one's soul, art is closer to one's heart. If it were not so, a person would have preferred to live in the forest, roaming about in nature, and would have been quite satisfied in the wilderness, finding the greatest charm in what the wilderness can offer, and in the beauty to be seen in the forest. Now, some of you may be saying, that sounds pretty good to me. I love nature. But if we think about what we've just been through, the pandemic, and how eager people were to meet again, to go to museums, maybe to see a movie, to go to a restaurant, it's true, we do love nature, and it offers such a great balance in our lives. It's very healing, but to live in it day in and day out in isolation could be quite another thing. So Murshid says, the greatest charm in what the wilderness can offer, and in the beauty to be seen in the forest. Instead of all of this, humans have created a world which we have made ourselves. And in that world, we have made a nature of our own imagination, a nature what we call art. If that is art, then on this art much depends. So in one sense, Murshid's talking about our man-made world, but he's talking about something deeper. So let me read that sentence again. Instead of all this, humans have created a world which we have made ourselves. And in that world, we have made a nature of our own imagination, a nature which we call art. If that is nature, then on this art, much depends. So in one sense, we could be talking about this, a material art, but I think Murshid is talking about a deeper metaphysical or esoteric art. So we go on with Murshid's words here. People may say, is that not an imitation of nature? Yes, it is an imitation of nature. You might say, then it is not as great as nature. But I say, both nature and art are made by the same artist, and that's a capital A, artist. Nature is made directly by the artist, again, capital A. And art is made indirectly through the pen of the artist, again, capital A. And when we think about those words, Murshid is suggesting that each one of us is the pen of the great artist. We are. The way we live our lives, the way we script our interactions, it's an art that we're creating. Now we have artists amongst us. I know Nur Latifa is, I know Gemma is, they make beautiful things with their hands, with paints and drawing. Nur Latifa now more with her garden, but also her personality when she deals with the sick that come every day before her in the emergency room at the hospital. That's a great art to help people stay calm, and focus to get to their next step in the hospital. So think of us. We are the pin in the artist's hand. Art is the finishing of that beauty which begins to manifest itself in nature. A person who has not come to this conception of art does not yet know the divinity of art. Now as to the question as to what to do with the personality. Personality is art itself. And Murshid says it's the greatest of art, the greatest of art. He goes on to tell this story. Once a lady told me, my parents brought me up just like a plant grows in the wilderness. When I replied, it's a great pity. And of course, she was surprised because she was proud of that fact. He goes on to explain it. What is education? What is culture? What is self-development? It is all art. It is the way for the individual to culminate into personality. In ancient times, the religious education and the human culture in every form mainly had the culture of the personality as the central theme. When we think of all the great religions, I mean, haven't they guided us in that way? Haven't they given us examples to follow? And usually it's from a prophet, a master, a saint, to follow in their footsteps. They've given us an example through their personalities, sometimes through their great writings, but not always. Sometimes it's just the stories we hear about these great beings or the vibration that we experience when we visit those sites. He says, Murshid says, today we are expected to learn mathematics, geography, history, and other things, but never the art of personality, which is the greatest use in life. Think about that. There's not a lot of focus put on that human development, how we interact with people and treat people. I mean, of course, we know the golden rules and we try to live by them, but I think perhaps I even knew those better when I was younger than I do now. I could recall them because I heard them recited so much to me. So Murshid goes on to say this, apart from its spiritual significance, again, he's referring to the art of personality, we see in our everyday life that a salesman who is pleasant, courteous, and well-mannered is successful. If a person lacks manner, they will be repellent. They may have all kinds of beautiful things in their shop, and they'll have no success. So we have an example here. In downtown Hollywood, Florida, there's lots of little shops and restaurants, and there's a beautiful shop called Cappadocia. And it has beautiful things, cloths, ceramics, lamps, carpets from Turkey. I've gone into that shop a number of times because I find the things very beautiful, but the person that's there doesn't seem to understand the nature of what he's representing. And I've suggested to him, you know, it would be customary to maybe offer someone a cup of tea and sit down while you show them things. This is the way it's done. And he doesn't seem to understand it. And in fact, I think it's not his fault. It's just, he has a kind of crude way. But the truth is, he's also a little dirty looking all the time. His shirt, he doesn't represent the beautiful objects in the shop very well. And it's not something, I don't really want to interact with him that much. It's not mine to help him. I've given him a few suggestions of my experiences when I was in Morocco or India or Turkey even, how the shopkeepers would do. And he is foreign himself. Perhaps he's Turkish, I'm not sure. He didn't understand some of the meanings of the sacred calligraphy, so I don't know. But anyway, this is an example in my life. There's also someone, when we go to our grocery store, so many of the checkers, the people where you go and get your groceries checked out with, are so pleasant. There's one woman, no matter how pleasant you are or how much you greet her, she always has a very kind of hateful look. Now, it could be a prejudice. She's a person of color. Maybe she doesn't like someone that's lighter skinned. I don't know. But the fact is, I always tell Joe, no, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go to her checkout stand. And maybe you have those things, but the truth is, if she was working independently and she had a shop, she wouldn't be very successful, because just her behavior and her inability to give a smile, it repels me, at least. And it, doesn't make the interaction something I want to encounter. So you may think about that in your own lives. And, they have that saying, one can always be used as a bad example. So when I see things like that, I think about the expression that I carry on my face and how I greet people, and just a slight smile, it can be so warming. Even when you don't feel that way, people will say to me when I'm walking with our new puppy, Kelsey, "Oh, you seem so happy." And I say, well, a smile changes everything. And I said, there's a saying, it's called fake it till you make it. So sometimes just smiling can change how one feels, even if one's feeling a little sad or moody in some way. Smiling is a good thing. It literally changes. And I think, Janice, you would know that through your yoga and your physical therapy, that the smile sends off all kinds of neurotransmitters and kind of changes the physiology and the hormones in the brain. So instead of, that. So think about that. Put a smile on one's face. But Merchant goes on to say, in these examples, a kindly manner, a sympathetic attitude, they will win the affection of all. Everything will be light. Everything will go smoothly. And you know what? Even if it doesn't, you at least feel like you have a partnership with people if they have a light attitude about it, and that you can move forward. And we've all experienced those times when it's not so much so. And it feels like a tragedy where we can't move forward with certain people, but then we have to accept it and move on. So Merchant goes on and says, if one lacks the art of personality, they may have all the qualifications. They may be the most capable person, yet things will not run smoothly. And they say that even in the medical field, that it's the attitude of the doctor that can help heal the patient, that sympathy, that empathy, that kind of affection towards another person can help really support and heal them. We have a friend of ours that lives here, and she's had what she thought was a mosquito bite at first, and then she thought it was an insect bite on her back. So she went to the doctor to get it checked. And believe it or not, it was breast cancer coming through her back. Well, she's been going on and on with it. She's seen a number of doctors. She's been through a number of therapies, and she has such a resilient attitude. And she most recently was on a cocktail, you might say, of a chemo, and it was working. It was bringing all of her levels into a proper order, and then all of a sudden it quit. Her body had developed some sort of tolerance or intolerance, but she went to a specialist at a hospital called Sloan Kettering, and she told me, yes, they're working on a new, I'm taking a new medication, and the doctor left me with this thought. He said to her, you're going to live a long, long, long life. And that is so helpful and healing to her, because it gives her courage. It gives her hope. And whether that long life is 24 hours or 24 years, we can't say. That's only in God's plan. But it uplifted her. And that doctor gave her courage and sort of the resilience to continue along a course. So think about that. Also, how our words can both be truthful and encouraging. Again, that doctor doesn't know. She could have been in an incident on her way home, and maybe her life was only for a few hours, but she was uplifted. And that changes the character of the soul and the mind and the heart. So let's do that for each other. So it says, Mersha goes back and says, if one lacks the art of personality, they may have all the qualifications. They may be the most capable person, yet things will not run smoothly. And again, as I said, we know what that's like as well. A person, whether a man or a woman, may be a barrister, an attorney, a lawyer, a solicitor, a doctor, a most qualified individual. But if the art of personality is not developed, they will be disagreeable and unpleasant in their home and in all walks of life. The art of personality is the main thing to develop. If not, a person misses a great deal. So Murshid goes on to say, and I think this is really profound to think about it. And I think of those of you that are living in Europe, maybe you understand this better than we do living in America. And perhaps also you, Kareem, in Africa have this kind of tradition. But we don't have such a sense of it. But in India, they certainly do and did. And Murshid says, the ancient people lived on tradition. And especially in the East, they regarded their ancestors not for their titles or their great works, but for the art of their personality. Today, in modern civilization, people have become, regardless of art, let me go back, today in modern civilization, people have become, regardless of this art, which considers the equality of persons. I think he means that they've come to regard the art as equality of people. And then he says, equality today is working in quite another direction. Now we can think of Gandhi, for example, how he was really working for equality of the Indian people under British rule and for independence. He was also trying to help people to see beyond the caste system and to see beyond the limitations of diverse religions. He was really trying to unify people. So that's a great example of that. I mean, I think the great mystics who see beyond politics and religion also have offered us that. Bye, Robert. We'll see you on the other side. But he says, and I find this very interesting, we have experienced it, Gemini did in education. He says, equality today is working in quite a different direction. Instead of rising upward toward the level of the best, people want to go downward and join the level of the worst. So this is interesting because we saw this movement in education. They were trying to create, rubrics, standards in design education that would help everybody. I don't even know how to quite say it. We got the impression, because we were such an excellent program, it had such amazing standards, but they were trying to bring the standards into some sort of equality that would require us to bring our standards to a lower level. And of course, we resisted that greatly, and we refused to accommodate that. I mean, we went through some sort of process because it meant we got funding from the government, but within our own internal environment, we just knew that that wasn't the quality of education that we were bringing forth or wished to bring forth. So, you have to think about that too. It's like if we had made a bold-faced stand, perhaps our students would have suffered by not getting funding that would allow for the facilities and the technologies to grow to educate them. So we went through the process, but we maintained our own and we maintained our own standards. So we had a very real example of that in education recently. And I suspect that teaching to the test and all that is part of it too. It's just in some ways the lowest common denominator for success. And of course, I think all of you will agree, we want to raise ourselves above that, not to be that. So Murshid says this, he goes on still talking about equality. When you hear the word equality, it seems a beautiful thing. It sounds so very nice. It seems religious, a philosophical idea. But what is life? Life is a symphony. And it is not every person, and is not every person a note in this symphony? Suppose you want to hear music, and that all the notes are the same. How would you enjoy the music? If all notes are equal, there's no music. If all persons are the same, There's no symphony. The way to understand equality is different. It is rising to the best, to the highest pitch. And if everyone can rise to that pitch, if they want to rise, if we want to rise. But a person takes the way of least resistance and they fall to the level of an average person. I can't believe anyone on this path would do that, because we embrace the God ideal. We try to raise ourselves above the denseness of the earth. We invoke in the prayers for the divine to pour upon us thy love and thy light, and to disclose to us thy divine light. So we, in our prayers, are always aspiring to raise up, to come up. It must be remembered that disregard of the principle, which is called the art of personality, may lead the present generation, the modern civilization, there where it can find nothing but disappointment, especially when materialism is prevailing all over and there's nothing to think about but matter and materialism. This in and of itself keeps us away from the art of personality. If this art is not introduced, and if there is no love for it, what then happens is that the human being does not become any better than the lower creation. And I have to say, sometimes the lower creation has a lot to teach us as well. I don't think Murshid is dismissing that. There's a lot to be learned by the natural rhythms of the animals and nature. And we know that's true in the music that Murshid studied, and also in yoga. You know, these postures have come from the animals. So I don't think he's being disrespectful there, but he's talking about animal nature that is only geared towards survival. There was a wonderful story on the news that highlights this. Is a beautiful young woman. I think she was about 15 or 16. She was living here in Florida, and she lived in the water. You know, she liked to surf and do kayaking and all those things. And she was swimming with a friend in the ocean, and she got attacked by a shark. And she told to her friend, "Run, run, be safe." Well, that's a higher ideal. Instead of calling for help, she wanted her friend to be safe. And she was just beautiful and radiant. And so they interviewed her a couple times on TV, and her whole side, luckily she fought it. So remember, if you ever come down here and you get in the ocean and a shark gets you, you don't want to give up. You want to hit him in his nose or her nose. So she kept hitting it, and it let go. And then it grabbed her leg, and she started kicking and hitting it again. It finally let her go, but she got 90-something stitches, but all of her limbs remained, and it didn't cut into her internal organs. I mean, she survived. But, you know, her mother was on the interview with her, and her mother was almost brought to tears that she had instilled in her daughter to say something like to her friend, go, run, be safe, get out of the water, and fought for herself instead of, again, calling for help and drawing someone into that danger. It's very high thinking of that young woman and a presence of mind. It's profound, really. So anyway, as I say, it was very touching to see them interviewed. And some of you that live here may have seen that interview. So, is a human being greater than an animal because they possess wealth, or because they read many books, or because they have learned much? Does that make a person greater than a human being? Or as a human being? Person, human being, individual, personality. Okay. No, a man or a woman is greater when from an individual, he or she becomes a person. Now, this is so interesting to me. Perhaps you also will be thinking about this. But it is our study. And in a way, it is our unlearning of our individuality that moves us closer to unity, that moves us closer to harmony, that gives us this sense of love for others, not necessarily personal love. We may learn like that, but this more universal form of love and care. And we have examples of that here before us too. I mean, Amina and Paran, what they've done in Italy is so beautiful. They have formed the most beautiful, and they're really developing into beautiful people together. And Amina has made so much of a sacrifice of her own life in translating so many of Murshid's books into Italian to make them accessible. And Paran is right there supporting her with the development of the Italian website to share these teachings. And, you know, I don't know if she's still here with us. I hope she, yeah, there she is. Safia has done the same thing. She's translated so many things into Dutch, and she gives tireless support. You know, it's her art that she keeps the social media going for us. So every one of you in your own way have done that. I would say, Marilee, you've raised a beautiful family of caring young men. They're beautiful. So that's your art, you know, and also your courage to endure the things you have. It's very beautiful, a wonderful example. So, and Gemma too, she keeps it all going. She's the steam behind my effort, you know. So thank you so much, all of you, for your shining examples. So Murshid goes on to say, very few of us distinguish between individuality and personality. Individuality is that which we have brought with our birth. We are born as a separate entity. That itself makes us an individual. And we know that also in the development of, you know, child development. We understand that the child goes through this individuation process as part of their growth. But then there's also the idea of merging also in a beautiful way. And again, maybe not in an individual, needy way, but in a way that allows us to be sensitive without being oversensitive to others. Murshid says, but personality is something that is acquired. It has not come with us. It is something we gain. So we learn, but maybe we also unlearn. He says, but personality is something that is acquired. It has not come to us. It is something to be gained. Besides this, the art of personality is not only something one should learn in order to become pleasant with others. The art of personality fulfills the purpose of life. The art of personality fulfills the purpose of life. Now, Murshid says, those of you that study, and I know you all do, he'll say that about many things. This is to fulfill the purpose of life. But there are many of those things. Maybe we should make a study of that in the message volumes and see, well, how many things does he say is the fulfillment of the purpose of the life? It could be like our commandments, our Sufi commandments. All right. So Murshid says, he asked this question. Now arises the question, what is the art of personality? And then he answers it. Is it mannerism, putting on airs of expression, a special politeness, a social rhythm? And then he answers again. No, not at all. That is falsehood, which people adopt by being unnatural and acting unnaturally. Instead of giving a better impression of themselves, they give a worse impression. The art of personality expresses itself spontaneously. One needs not act in a certain way. One need not put on something. It is the expression of oneself, which shows the art of personality. Expressing the art of personality is a sign of the great. Knowing or unknowing, no, excuse me, knowingly or unknowingly, a person may develop that manner in oneself. And it is wonderful to watch. Now, I have to go back up here because those of us that spent much time with Murshid Hidayat will say this. He said, the art of Murshid says, Hazrat Inayat Khan says, the art of personality expresses itself spontaneously. One need not act in a certain way. One need not put on something. It is the expression of oneself, which shows the art of personality. And Murshid Hidayat would always say, he didn't favor when people were trying to act spiritual. He really wanted people to act natural. And he would always say, we don't have to pretend to be spiritual. We are spiritual. But he also would say, just be natural. Just be natural. Now, if you look back on your own life, I can see for myself, even from being a young adult, and I think the message has had a lot to do with it, how I've developed. I've developed a kind of certainty. I think I'm not quite as shy as I used to be. There are a lot of good things that have come from it. And in an interesting way, Joe and I, we were also discussing this when we were in Boston this last week about, being in Boston, the number one industry is education. There's so many, Harvard's there, Massachusetts, MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Brown University, Boston University. These are really high, Ivy League schools that bring about the great thinkers in our world. And, we were talking about the value of education. And I think we both came to the same conclusion that education is good. It does teach us certain things, and it teaches us, but it also teaches us discipline. So we learn to study if we want to succeed. It teaches concentration and focus. It teaches us how to get along with each other and interact with each other. It teaches us a kind of respect for our professors, but it also teaches us, out of all the great disciplines of knowledge, and we may learn some of those in education, but it also teaches us what we don't know, because there's so much vast knowledge. And if we haven't encountered that, we could think we know everything. We may know a lot about something, but we don't know everything. And that also helps us develop the personality of a humility and openness to learn and engage with other people. And it doesn't isolate us in that way. So that's just something we really realized recently ourselves. So now these are back to Murshid's words. One may ask, if we have a personality, why must we develop it? And then he says, here's our metaphor that we've been using the last few months. But even a diamond must be cut. It has light in it, yet cutting is required to awaken it. It cannot show its glow and brilliancy before it's cut. And the same with the personality. Whoa. All right. So now we're talking about, if we think, I think I've mentioned this before, and when I was studying as a student in my undergraduate years, I did a whole semester dedicated to the journals and diaries of Michelangelo and his work. And my professor was someone who had done deep graduate work in this as well. So she was really very qualified to lead us through this class. But, and in those journals, he said that when he'd see a piece of marble, he'd contemplate it. And in that contemplation, the marble would speak to him and reveal what was hidden within the marble. And that's really profound, that he could see by observing a clump of marble, just like a jeweler would do so by observing a raw diamond that just looks like a rock, or maybe even kind of quartz-like, what could be revealed in it. And so it was his cleaving and his hammering and his polishing and sanding that would bring forth these beautiful sculptures. Bernini's same way. So if we think about it, that process of moving from individual to a personality requires the same thing. And my mother would often use this term, and I'm sure you've heard it, the school of hard knocks. So instead of letting those difficulties damage us, we can think of it as a way of cleaving something off that's allowing us to emerge into that diamond or that beautiful art of personality. We can take those things, we can use them as a way of forming the personality if we don't let them destroy us. All right. Once again, I'm going to read this. If we have a personality, why must we develop it? But even a diamond must be cut. It has light in it, yet cutting is required to awaken it. It cannot show its glow and brilliancy before it has been cut. It is the same with personality. So, we've worked with these two wazifas, Kabbat and Basit, the last few months. I think we should continue it because I think it's very relative to what Mersha just said there. And again, Kabbat, or yes, it's the root. It's from the root verb kabd. Kabbat is spelled Q-A-B-D, but kabd is K-A-B-D, not without the I, kabad. And it denotes to decrease, to take, to hold, to seize, to grip, to catch. We could say to cleave maybe as well. So it's holding on something in the hand. And, I've used that metaphor, the way a diamond is formed in the earth, and also other precious stones. They're formed through this great pressure, this holding, this seizing, this gripping. And this is, I think, for me at least, what I need to do. I need to be mindful, watch myself. And when those things arise in me that I want to transform, I have to grab them and hold them and consciously hold them to try to transform them into that diamond. So Kabbat is the first part. And Basit means simply to release, to expand. Another term is to stretch out our hands in a gesture of graciousness and goodwill to help others. So this Kabbat and this Basit. And it's said so many times that Mother Krishnabai is I've heard this story by someone that had met her. And there was a gentleman that was on tour in India, and they had gone to see Papa Ram Das and Mother Krishnabai. And the man said, one of the men, he was American, said, I'm here, I see all this poverty, I just want to give people all my clothes and all my money. And Mother Krishnabai said, and I hope you understand this, because if you understand banking, you know that you put money in the bank and sometimes you get some interest. So that's extra money that you earn on that money. You get that in certificates of deposits or savings bonds, or sometimes in stocks. So the principal is what you originally invest, but the interest is what you earn off of it. So that's a little extra. So Mother Krishnabai said, how practical for a saint to say this. Never give from your principal, only give from your interest. Now we had Michelle Obama, who was the Barack Obama's wife, always said she felt it was very important to fill her own cup, and from what overflowed, that's what she gave to others. So our practices, I hope they do that for you. They do it for me. They have to refocus and recenter me and make me feel filled so that I can give something back. So this is this Kabbat, this drawing in, kind of withdrawing, going into our inner world, also controlling those impulses that we think could maybe hurt or harm others, and eventually also ourselves, things we want to work on. We draw those in, we hold them in this place. And when we release them with Basit, we open to this goodwill and graciousness and helpfulness. But I also love that image because I love shiny things of just those, it's like those 007 movies when they have the diamonds in there, those black velvet cases, like that darkness of Cobbett, and then they like sprinkle those diamonds out and they just glisten with light. Well, that's what we're trying to release from ourselves, these precious jewels. Okay. So let's work with this. We'll just first say it, ya Cobbett, ya Basset. We'll say it just 11 times. Ya Cobbett, ya Basset, ya Cobbett, ya Basset. Ya Cobbett, ya Basset, 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 ya Cobbett, ya Basset. And now we will whisper it. And we'll draw in with our breath on the whisper. We'll hold for a moment, feeling that concentration, that real grip, that kind of compression of something so that something beautiful can emerge. And then we'll say Basset. So it'll go like this. Cobbett, Basset. Now on the breath, breathing in Cobbett and out Basset with a small pause in between. Ya Cobbett, ya Basset. We're almost done here. These are the last few words of Murshid, and then we have one more practice. Murshid says this to us. No one has ever given a thought to the deeper side. No one who has given a thought to the deeper side of life will deny for one moment the power and inspiration that arise once the heart is kindled. A person with heart quality need not be simple, need not discard intellect, only the heart quality produces a perfume in the intellect, like the fragrance of the flower. And so this goes back to Murshid talking about the art of personality, how it was thought in ancient times in the culture that people didn't think so much about maybe the books that were written or the things that were said by someone, but the atmosphere of that person and the love that they gave to the world. And so again, like last month, when we met at the Dervish Cafe, we worked with Ishq Allah, Mabud Allah. And these are Murshid's words. He says this: mystics of all ages have not been known for their miraculous powers or for the doctrines they taught. The Sufi in the East, but for their love, he says. I messed something up when I made these notes. But he goes on to say, the Sufi of the East says to oneself, Ishq Allah, Mabud Allah, which means God is love. God is the beloved. In other words, he says, God is love, lover, and beloved. We could also say it this way, because I ponder this sometimes, it's like on this path of initiation, this path of unlearning some things so that we can learn others about the inner life and the deeper side of life. There's this desire to acquire knowledge. And then there's this, I should say first, there's the desire to know, to understand. Then we want to find a way to acquire that knowledge. We may do that through our own study or with the help of a guide. And then you know what? We become the known. We become that. It becomes integrated and it becomes an expression of our own being, the art of personality. So sometimes love, lover, and beloved, but maybe it's the desire to know, the knowledge, and then becoming oneself the known, to share that with others. And then he goes on to say, we hear the stories of miraculous powers of mystics. We could also say saints, of their great insight into the hidden laws of nature, of the qualities they manifested through their beautiful personalities. We realize that these have all come from one and the same source, whether we call it devotion or whether we call it love. And so, and then Murshid also says this, and I think it's quite profound. In the atmosphere that an awakened soul produces lives for centuries in this world, unbroken and unpolluted. Think of Rumi, think of Hafiz, think of the great saints, St. Francis, St. Teresa, St. Joseph, all of them. Murshid says, the sky takes care of it and preserves it for generations. It's like the nun said to me when I was going to Catholic school, to think of the breath of Jesus, the molecules, the words, the sounds of the great symphonies that have played. They still exist. We just need to tune to them. We just need to tune in. But it's by rising up to meet them, not pulling something down. So let's remember that, to raise up. So again, just briefly in sort of deconstructing Ishq Allah, Mabud Allah. Ishq means love, or it means passion. And Allah, of course, are the 99 manifestations or qualities. They're contained in this one word, Allah. And Mabud is the one who's the object of our love, Mabud. And then again, who's the object of our love? Allah is. So we first invoke Allah, and then we say, you are the object of our love and devotion. And then we close again with the affirmation. Who is it? It's Allah. Okay, so let's do this 11 times aloud. Ishq Allah, Mabud Allah. And we can make that motion of zikr where we go from left to right and up and down and then up again. And it makes that sign of the cross, this the horizontal line being limitation and the perpendicular line being resurrection or ascension. So we make this Ishq Allah, and then we bring it into our deep heart with Mabud. Mabud is the object of this passion, and Mabud expresses itself in Allah. We raise our hands. Ishq Allah, Mabud Allah. 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 Ishq Allah, Mabud. Ishq Allah, Mabud Allah. Ishq Allah, Mabud Allah. Ishq Allah, Mabud Allah. As I was working with this practice over the last month or so, and it's kind of one of my main practices that I like to do this one. I feel it's important for me, at least. I do it frequently, even when we're not assigned it. But it came to me, these words in English, almost like, when I was studying with my teacher, Kamtul Rinpoche, gave me the Bodhisattva vows to say every day. And that's the commitment to give good to others. And if there's any ill will, then it can come upon me instead of others. So I thought Ishq Allah, Mabud Allah is a bit like that. And these words in English came. They'll be in the study guide if they're of any use to you. Maybe it's just for me. But I thought I would add this as a practice of kind of to go along with that Bodhisattva vow. And it says, God is the single source of all good qualities. Ishq Allah. God is the single source of all good qualities. And then Mabud, the object of my passion and my devotion, would be translated for me at least. With abiding and passionate determination, I seek to know and understand all good qualities within myself and within all of manifestation. Or we could say, within myself, within others, and all of manifestation. So let us close the way we begin, with just this prayer towards the One and offering our dedication of any merit that has happened here in our gathering. May it go from our heart in widening circles to touch others and to touch the hearts of our world's leaders, to touch the hearts of those making law and making decisions for us, all the public figures. May something good come from this. Some of you are my Facebook friends, and you know that I had the chance to visit. I was reminded several times on Facebook. I would call it the world headquarters of the Christian Science Church, but people that are from that religion, it's called the Mother Church. Then I say, why not call it the Mother Father Church if we want to have all things equal? But that was the religion founded by Mary Baker Eddy. And I had a very lovely discussion with some people there about Amina Begum, the wife of Inayat Khan, who is said to have been the niece of Mary Baker Eddy. At any rate, there's something that's called the maparium, and you enter this room and the globe is around you, and it's glass and it's beautiful. And of course, it's profound because it was created in the 1930s. So some of the countries that you see don't exist, or some that now exist are shown in a different way. But it completely envelops you, and there's a bridge that you cross through. And it's illuminated from the back, so the light shining through. There's something, and there were people there from all different parts of the world that we went in this together. So it created this kind of unity, and it was touching for me to be able to look all around and think of all the amazing places that my profession allowed me to travel to, and Sufism also allowed me to travel to. But the man who was our guide asked me to, there's something about the acoustics that a whisper sounds like you're talking with a full voice. So he took me to one side of the bridge and he said, whisper something. And I whispered love, harmony, and beauty. And it became very still, very quiet. And when the doors opened, I went to the ladies' room, and some of the ladies followed me, and they said, there was something about those words that really touched me. It was very beautiful. Thank you for whispering those words. And it was profound to be inside the world, so to speak, and to hear those words. And I did that very purposefully, because I think that was such an important, if we don't remember anything of Murshid's message, when we take our last breath, try to remember love, harmony, and beauty. And the man himself who had been a guide through the map area, and said, I've been doing this 19 years, and I've asked many people to say something. They usually say, hi, hello, my name is, I'm from, whatever. He said, but there was something so profound about those words. And of course, it gave me an opportunity to speak of Murshid. And then one of the other women, I was speaking to someone when I first entered the headquarters, and she had talked to some of the other women, and there was someone waiting outside, and she had a business card to be in contact with the research library for Christian Science about this, to really kind of know and confirm the sort of genealogy of Mary Baker Eddy, and if Ora Ray Baker is really in it. If not, it's certainly a beautiful myth that we all believe in. And but there's something there. There has to be something there. So they're going to look into that, and I need to follow up with writing to them. But those words, love, harmony, and beauty, without people knowing anything about Sufism, were very touched by them, and I was happy to offer that. So let's also send that dedication out to the whole world, as if we're standing there looking at all those countries and all those people. Love, harmony, and beauty. Amen.